Well, let me start by introducing myself. My name is Charles Moon. I am the Principal Analyst for Informa Telecoms and Media, covering Asia Pacific. So, in my role as a regional analyst, really I look at China, but I look at a whole bunch of other markets. Obviously, emerging markets are a significant aspect of countries that I look at. So, with that perspective, maybe I'll start with China, and of course, being the visiting analyst, I'm sure the expectation is that you hear a lot of numbers and see a lot of charts from me, which I promise that I will supply you with. So we're actually at a very, very special time in telecoms here in China. By the end of this year, we're looking at around 840 million mobile subscriptions, which is just an incredible number. If you think about penetration 5 years ago, even just 3 years ago. By 2012, that number is going to balloon to 1 billion. So this is really the kind of the image that I first had in my mind when I was asked to speak at this event. Really, it's China, right, the giant, and then you have a bunch of small regional players. There's no doubt China is a regional and a global leader. I mean, in terms of driving the world economy over the past few quarters, China's had the strongest growth, and it's been the biggest economy, and will continue to be in this region. But over the next, over the session today and over the next day or two, I would encourage you to think about the things that you hear about at this event, sort of from the way that I look at it. And I look at it from an overall emerging markets perspective. So when we talk about China as an emerging market, I think that can be translated really to other countries, not just in Asia Pacific, but also in your own regions. Really, it's a macrocosm, I suppose, or a mirror on other emerging markets. Kind of similar structures. Many of the things that we heard Dr. Fan talking about today, we see in emerging markets all around the world, right? Disparity in incomes, high rural penetration, and things like this. Economic growth similarities. We see similarities in terms of growth of mobile subscriptions. And as well, 3G. 3G is no longer about developed markets. And I'm going to show you 3G is really becoming an emerging market story. And of course, with 3G, you have a whole bunch of applications and services that are enabled by the faster networks. So, economic growth. You can see here I've charted out some major emerging markets in the region, as well as developed markets here in Asia, as well as globally. You can see, by definition, emerging market means high growth. And if you look at kind of the 4 largest economies here, really this is borne out by the numbers. Real GDP growth from 2005 to 2014. And China, as Dr. Fan mentioned earlier, 8.5% growth. But look at India, Vietnam, Indonesia, all above 5%. Malaysia, Philippines, 4%. And then as we go into developed markets, obviously growth tapers off. So what is this providing? Well, at least from an income perspective, There's a, I guess you could say there's a dynamism, and I'm sure a lot of you, when you came into Shanghai, you could, I mean, literally you can feel the energy. There's people everywhere. People are trying to sell you something. I mean, public transport is packed. Everyone's on a mobile phone taking pictures on the street. Certainly a lot of energy in the people and in terms of spending, in terms of consumption. So that's what we're seeing in emerging markets, not just China. Now, when we talk about technology growth, specifically mobile penetration, by 2015, we're forecasting for around 4 billion mobile subscriptions in Asia Pacific. That's almost double the total from last year, and that's not including device-to-device communications. This is just mobile subscriptions for people. 92% of that number is coming from emerging markets. Even when we strip out China and India, the total still, 3/4 of that number is going to come from emerging markets. So basically high growth in telecoms. But not just, I mean, we're not talking about 2G handsets, right? We're not just talking about GSM. We're talking about 3G. We're talking about more sophisticated devices which can connect to the network and have data rates that are much faster, have better codecs, better user experience. And I mean, look at the numbers. India, we're almost at 500 million subscribers for 3G, right? Not 2G. This is for 3G subscriptions. 7 out of the 10 top markets for 3G in Asia Pacific are going to come from emerging markets. China, if you added EBDO into the equation, it's going to be above 500 million. Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, all over 100 million subscribers. So some of the drivers for this, cheaper devices, first and foremost. I remember, I think 4 years ago, we were looking at the price of 3G devices, and the lowest price branded device, I believe in 2006, was selling at around 280 euro, 300 euro. Last year, that was 80 euro. This year, we expect that to go down to 60 to 50 euro. Now, if we're talking about ODM, white label, 3G devices, we're seeing some devices in markets here running at around $40 to $50 US. So that's really hitting that, what we call ULC kind of market, which is ultra low cost devices. That's for 3G device. So 3G is no longer a developed market technology. So what is all of this? What does all of this mean? What is all of this bringing us? We have economic development. We've got high user penetration of mobile devices, and we also have high penetration of 3G devices. Well, what this is going to bring, you're going to hear about it today and over the next couple of days. Obviously, you're going to get cheaper connectivity, but what's more interesting is you're going to get people who've never had exposure to the internet. These people are now going to be able to see what the internet is about, and also we're also going to see kind of a new internet emerging in emerging markets. So this is, I mean, we've seen it in the U.S. and developed markets with the iPhone. Talking here about app stores, but moving beyond that for emerging markets, I mean, when we see, when we see this happening, right, well over, what is that? I mean, if you add up the numbers, around 1.52 billion 3G subscribers in the region. I think we're going to see some very interesting business models, some very interesting services, which the following panel guests will be talking about. New ways to connect for people, and hopefully, I think over the medium to long term, better cities, better towns, better farms, and better lives really for all of us here in the region. Thank you very much.